feel like analog audio is what everything else is trying to be.
I love analog gear because it just simply sounds better than a computerized plug-in, whatever people are using these days.
My passion for analog comes from the records that I grew up with.
I'm always trying to put analog either on the front end of it or on the back end of it, usually both.
I've always been in love with the analog sound purely because it has such a rich, true, human vibe to it to me.
And I have a theory, when you actually plug a microphone into something that physically weighs 5 pounds, it's going to come out sounding bigger than when it went in.
There's just something pure and punchy and honest.
It wasn't until everything started going really digital, which at first I thought was a godsend, that I started realizing how much I loved analog.
I love analog recording because now with digital being the form of the day, it's really very hard to capture character, instrument character, certainly live performance character, that stands the test of time.
Analog is chaos laden.
Digital surpasses analog in every respect.
Analog is the way of the world.
With the exception of tone, of the sound. The facility of digital is fantastic. Analog still has the edge when it comes to reality.
The world is analog. The ocean is analog. The air is analog. You know, if the world was a digital world, everything would be one of 256 colors, and it's not. The world is all colors.
With a totally digital production environment, working totally inside the box, it's quite possible to stay very sterile.
I didn't know that I liked analog audio until digital audio came along. And then I realized what I had.
If you put them right side by side and you listen to the one over the other, you're always going to go to that analog sound.
Some guys don't realize what you can be capable of getting on tape, so they never strive to go for that sound, that magic. They don't realize it exists because they've been stuck in the digital domain their entire career, and they need to broaden their horizons.
And even if you are working in the box, it makes total sense to come out of the box, go through analog, and even mix to analog, or whatever. Just have it somewhere in the stage of your recording, and the benefits are you can't replace the benefits with any plug-in or anything other than going analog.
The studio that I have at the moment that I'm working with at home is a mixture of analog recording and digital recording.
When digital was first introduced to us as a medium for recording, it was dreadful. Far below the standard we already had, but it was obviously the way of the future.
I was very fearful when I brought in my new Pro Tools HD system that I was going to lose some of the analog world that I loved.
I've done some work in serious high-resolution digital formats, and when you play that analog right beside it, what you hear in the digital land is what sounds like a very good recording, and the second one sounds like somebody playing music.
The newer generations of digital stuff can reproduce a waveform very, very accurately, but there's something else. I don't know how you describe it.
It's more interesting. Analog tape to me is fantastic because of the fact that from track to track, the EQ curve or the playback curve is not the same. And that produces an amount of randomness and chaos that is actually, strangely enough, quite musical.
It's because the engineers that have been around for a long time really know the difference. And they know when they sit in front of the console and they listen to it that, you just can't reproduce what an analog disc sounds like.
I have never heard a plug-in that sounded anything like what the real analog unit sounds like.
Most of the material I do tends to be rock or alternative or more kind of earthy singer-songwriter oriented things, and I really feel that you need that purity of tone to make convincing records.
By adding a an API processor across the vocal as it's going down to bits in the first place, then those individuals are able to capture some of that sonic quality that they've found missing when they've worked with a just within, say, a sterile digital environment, if you will.
People will not strive to get higher quality sound if they're unaware that it exists. That's part of the problem.
Analog is all God and no humans. Digital is all humans and no God. And that's sort of the thing. It's messy and fantastic, and I love that.